My name's Santé and this is my van Clifford in Dog Sitka, and we've been living in the van for about a year, just over a year now. This is a 1992 Eurovan Westie. Let's have a look. So when I got the van, it was completely stock. I actually got the van from my grandfather, who there was nothing that had been modified on this van. So first thing we did was put new tires, wheels, the lift kit to give me a little bit more ground clearance, and then redid a lot of the suspension just so I could handle dirt roads and stuff, which we ended up spending a lot of time camping on. I don't find that I need four-wheel drive, but having bigger tires and a lot more clearance is pretty much all that I personally need. I'm not doing anything too crazy. Otherwise, tons of engine work just to keep things up and running. Installed the roof racks up top, got the rooftop box. It has the solar panels on top. The old Adventurer boxes perfectly fit two 100-watt flexible solar panels. If you search on Amazon for flexible solar, that's really the only option. They're all the same size, and two of them fit perfectly up there. I was able to install them with just using roofing tape, so I didn't have to bolt any holes into the roof. And then they're lightweight enough that you can actually still open the cargo box and then tilt the panels towards the sun, so you get way more efficiency, which means you need fewer panels, and it saves a ton of space so that I still have the whole other side of my roof to be able to throw a surfboard. And on the back here, we actually built a cool little storage area. This was my project this fall. Yeah, this is sort of my garage slash outdoor cooking area. And the neat thing about it is that technically it's still considered self-contained. Down. And now I've got an outdoor, they're adjustable, so they can support the weight of this. But yeah, I've got the ability to set up a stove back here. You can cook outside when it's nice and dry. And then the whole thing's on a swing hitch down here, so that the whole thing rotates away so you can still get into the back of the van. Normally you can just load up the roof with as much weight as you want up there, but if you're having to pop the top, weight up there is just killer. So yeah, this is the living room, bedroom, study, office, kitchen, and lounge area. I think that's about all the things that this thing serves as. Sink, stove, this thing's kind of neat. It goes out the window back here, so you can have a shower in the summer when it's a little warmer than it is now. And then we've got the fridge over here, fully stocked. Thing stays nice and cold. And otherwise, just tons and tons of storage. It's a little empty at the moment and disorganized, but you know, cutlery, dishes, all that kind of stuff. Good old utility drawer. Every apartment I've ever owned, every house has the drawer that's just full of shit. And even when you live in a van, you still have that drawer. I mean, I've gone through and cleaned it out multiple times, and I still end up with this much random shit. Over here. Up. And then this transforms into the bed. Two people sleep there. Normally, there's another bed up here, but I took it out so that I'd have way more storage space, and when this bed isn't down, this is a standing desk slash chopping cooking area for hanging out and cooking when you're standing up. Yeah, it's just a little bit more living space, and I don't need to sleep four people, so yeah, anything I can do to get a little bit more living space in here was super useful. Solar coming through the roof right here, and then goes down back into my little charge controller in the back. There's a whole panel there. A bunch of USB plugs here, an AC wall port that's connected to the inverter, and then this is the power switch to turn on the inverter. So the inverter's on, so now these are live, and then the little control panel for the heater, and then some light switches and stuff. I used to have tower plugs on the ground, and then they were full of sand, and yeah, that didn't work out very long. And a friend of mine, shout out to Nikki, told me this new little secret, which is that this locks up like that. And if you open the back, this is now a couch basically. You can lay out with your feet out the back. Got a little back support here. And I don't know how this thing works. It's some sort of spring lock thing, because it's fully locked, but all you have to do is push it this way, hear it click, and then it comes back down again. I got our little meter for solar, so right now we're pulling an 1.5 amp or 1.2 amps, and I got a kill switch just in case I'm going to leave it for a while. And then in here we've got all the electronics are kind of buried deep away. We got a charge controller, fuse panel, and then the batteries are down in this compartment down here. Go all the way back there, and the inverter's tucked away. So for the most part, I work remotely as a software developer, so I do have to have a full office in here. We've got a little table that slides out of here. Slide forward a little bit. Boom. A little bit of dust. And yeah, we have an office. Yeah, I normally just tether off some iPhones to get data for Wi-Fi. I live in a van because I wanted to lead a little bit more of a deliberate, focused life. I had, by all definitions, everything I should have needed to make me happy. A nice job, nice car, cool apartment, living the life, and yeah, something just wasn't quite right. I just wanted to get outdoors more and kind of be a little bit more free. Slowly but surely over the years, I lived on a sailboat for a little bit, lived in a vehicle for a little bit, and was doing a lot of car camping and whatnot out of a Subaru. And then, yeah, slowly but surely over the years, kind of found myself in a position where I could do it financially with work. Took years to build up the software skills needed to be able to support more of a remote lifestyle. And then figured out the van, built out the van, worked on it, spent a lot of time iterating on different ways of organizing and setting up the van. Finally kind of got it all together. It's been a year and have no end in sight, so it's been a pretty rad transition. Even when I was in an apartment, I would sort of make minimalist choices here and there. I always found it difficult to really live up to the ideal while I was living in an apartment, just because you have space, you have time, you have resources, you have all this stuff. It's just hard not to just want to fill it with stuff. And even when you moving from an apartment to a sailboat, I think was one step down. There still is a fair amount of room in a sailboat, and sure enough, I would get rid of 90% of the stuff that I owned moving from the apartment to the sailboat, but I would still end up with filling the whole sailboat full of stuff. And moving from the sailboat down into the van was another huge step, and I continually fight myself not to fill the van with all sorts of stuff. I think the van really makes you realize just how much you suffer from having stuff. It's just when things get wet, when you have to move something to get to something else, it's just, you feel the pain of ownership in a way that you don't when you're living in an apartment or when things are a little bit drier and warmer and easier. So this has definitely been kind of minimalism to the next level. I like being able to work on stuff. I like being able to fix things and whatnot. So it's been challenging to say no to a lot of things that I would otherwise like to be able to work on and keep stuff, to have stuff to work on projects or whatnot. There's been a lot of just saying no to a lot of things so that I can say yes to continually living the lifestyle and realizing that that's what's gonna make me happy in the long run. I mean, I definitely feel like I wasn't on the vanguard, no pun intended, of van life. I definitely saw it with when Foster Huntington started the hashtag many years ago. I saw it while I was still living in an office. I think I may have been living on a sailboat at the time. Yeah, it was more of maybe a small act of rebellion against the white picket fence. But in some ways, the van has become the new white picket fence, and that everyone is now trying to get bigger and better vans. The Sprinter van movement is insane. I love the VW community, even though the amount of creativity that's in the Sprinter van world is phenomenal, but the amount of money that's going into it, it's really cool to see as an engineer and a nerd, like seeing some of these amazing systems they're building out. They're truly phenomenal, but at some point it doesn't feel like a rebellion anymore. It feels more like we're all now doing the same thing that the people with houses are doing. We're all just trying to one-up each other with cooler vans and whatnot, and we've kind of lost the vision of what the original goal was to get away from all that. But that being said, I think the fact that it is in many ways the new white picket fence for a lot of young people just speaks to, I think, some underlying desire that a lot of us have to live freer lives, to not necessarily be tethered to a 9 to 5 and to a little plot of earth that we call home. and the ability to travel and whatnot. I think the internet and the fact that most of us, or many of us, can work remotely now, and more people are going to be working remotely, I think it's a sign of things to come. So, I do recommend that people, if you're thinking about van life, I definitely do recommend it, but just to be mindful of the fact of like where it's coming from, what the real goal behind it was, and to try and not get lost in feeling like you constantly need a bigger and better van in order to be happy. The goal is to be out here all the time, regardless of what van you're in. So if you're thinking about it, the type of person, or I'd recommend any van you can get. Like, don't let the van become the fixation. You can be happy in anything if you let yourself be. Most of us can't and won't let ourselves be happy in just about anything. We're all fixated on, some van that lives in our mind that one day might be a reality, but don't let that get in the way. I think if you're the right kind of person for it. Like, you feel that calling. You know that you're the type of person who is completely comfortable sleeping in a tent in the rain, and if you're happy with that and love that, if you need a hairdryer and to be warm and dry and comfortable all the time, then it's probably not for you. But I think one of the biggest misconceptions with van life is that people just all of a sudden did it one day. Like, you went from being in a house to in a van, and for a few people that is their story, but for the most part, most of us took years and years to kind of think it out, plan it out, get a van, build it out. Just kind of, it takes time, so be patient with yourself, because you'll be a little bit happier, I think, if you just take a little bit more time and think it through a little bit more. I was able to adopt Sitka right before I hit the road full time, and I'd wanted a husky for like 10 years, but never knew that while I was working in an office and was gone most of the day, I couldn't get a dog. So a big part of my transition was actually being able to actually care for a dog and be able to take care of him. So I rescued him when he was about 8 months old, and we've been together pretty much every day since then. Yeah, I think he's living a much better life than he was before. I'm a runner, he's a runner, we run together. Pretty awesome opportunity to give a dog a second chance at life. We went on an awesome hike yesterday, which is why he's completely out of it. Normally he's a little bit more energetic than this. Dog in a van is really tricky, I'm not gonna lie. It's been one of the biggest challenges, and I didn't quite realize how tricky it was going to be, but especially in the States where it's a little bit hotter and dogs aren't allowed in national parks and stuff, so there's a lot of places that he can't go, and I can't leave him in the van because it's too hot. I can't go into a coffee shop to work because he's not allowed to be in the van. In some places it's like a felony to leave a dog in a van or any vehicle when it's hot out. I can't take him with me because he's not allowed in the coffee shop, so we're just kind of in this like weird limbo a lot of the time. If you are thinking about getting a dog, a smaller short-haired dog probably makes a little bit more sense just for the heat aspect of things. But then again, it's really nice in the winter to not have to worry about him getting cold, because it's generally easier to stay warmer. If you're trying to stealth camp in a city, having a dog is another challenge. Fortunately for us, we spend most of our time out in the woods and the mountains, like, way down a dirt road somewhere, so he's generally able to roam and be free, chase squirrels and poop wherever he wants. The upsides is, we get to be together all the time. I've met so many amazing people through him, and he's the first dog I've been able to share an adventure with. It's been an awesome learning experience. He's taught me a lot about myself and how I want to be. I mean, for me, doing software development, I've found that I can pick and choose who I want to work for a little bit more, and I don't have to work if I don't need to work for a bit. So I can work for companies work for companies I like, work for companies that I think are doing meaningful work, and that allows me, and I can charge a whole lot less than I would if I had to pay rent in San Francisco. So I'm able to make plenty of money for what I need. I find working for them far more meaningful and helpful. I find that they're way more receptive to things, and that I find that I'm happier working for them. Yeah, I think just the work flexibility is huge. If you run out of money, or you're getting close to running out of money, you can literally just find a cool place to park and figure it out. You're not going to get kicked out. So you have a little bit more mental freedom there to kind of set your own, decide how you want to live your life a little bit more, instead of just having life kind of live through you in some ways. The community's huge. I've met some of the most amazing people out here, And yeah, I would not give those relationships that I've formed up for anything. I mean, they're some of the coolest people I'll probably ever meet have been out here on the road. The other benefit is that I'm outdoors all the time. I particularly spend a lot more time way down dirt roads in the middle of nowhere than I think most people do. I know I have a lot of friends who do the stealth camping thing in towns and stuff, and they like that. That's for them, their goal is just to be able to still go to the bars and like hang out and still be kind of attached to cities in ways, and that's cool. They love it. I don't really have any desire to be in a city for the most part. I'm much happier way in the middle of nowhere. The number of nights I've woken up to the Milky Way above my head with raindrops pitter pattering on the fiberglass roof, that to me is a benefit that or the amount of free time and time outside has just been phenomenal. There was a place in California I used to go to for years and years and years, and I'd go there every weekend for like so many months, and I always had to be back Sunday night / Monday morning, and the first like sunset on a Monday was just like I'd never experienced this before, and that might sound silly, but to me that was a huge shift of just realizing that like, hey, this is actually where I live now. The challenges are huge. You have nowhere to sleep at night, and yet you can sleep anywhere at night, and that's you're constantly thinking about that. I mean, everything is a struggle in a way. Like doing dishes, finding water, all the things that you take for granted become struggles, and everything that you used to struggle for is now something you can take for granted. So being outside the mountains, that's like a free unlimited resource, but running water and electricity are now things that you have to go seek out and find. So you've kind of flipped the dials in many ways. So yeah, it's just a lot of like figuring out places you can get water, places you can get electricity, seeking sunshine, planning out routes based on weather, doing all this research, making sure that you have enough, cell phone data to be able to do all this. These are all challenges. Finding places to go to the bathroom, especially with a dog, you can't just like leave him in the van for long periods of time if you need to go run errands and go grocery shopping and do some work in a coffee shop. And I've never been woken up in the middle of the night, fortunately. I do a pretty good job of staying out of those kind of situations. I'm also a bright red van covered in stickers and gear. There is no stealth camping to be done in this van. If you've got a white panel van that's amazing on the inside but looks like a stealth vehicle on the outside, you can probably get away with it. I know that I can't, so I always have to put in the extra effort to get out of town a little bit more, or to hide occasionally when I am in town. Because I do spend way more time driving down dirt roads, fear of getting stuck is pretty big. I had the engine die on me once, like 10 miles up a dirt road in Colorado as as it was getting super dark out, and it was going to be cold that night. I managed to like drift my way down the mountain, and then finally got the engine to start, and then it died again as soon as I got into town. Personally, I think that if you're thinking about doing this, chances are you probably already, at least for me, like I was doing this out of a Subaru, and before that I was doing it out of a Mazda hatchback, and before that I was doing it out of my 89 Corolla. I was just, driving up into dirt roads, places where I probably shouldn't be driving any of those vehicles, throwing a sleeping bag down on the ground, and camping under the stars for the night, and then going on large day hikes and whatnot. If you're the type of person who's already kind of pushing the envelope in those ways, then you probably know that this is something you can do. If you're thinking about it, do it. Go online. There's millions of resources. Plan your van out, figure out what you want to do, how you want to do it. Any steps you can take towards finding ways of working remotely, I definitely recommend investing time and resources into that while you still have the resources of an apartment. If it's videography, if it's photography, if it's music, graphic design, software engineering, some sort of anything you can do remotely, those become really helpful if you want to do this long term. If you don't want to do it long term and you just want to like have a van and go for fun weekend trips, that's awesome too. I have a feeling that you'll probably want to start doing this more as you kind of get a taste for it. In fact, that's probably a really good way of getting into van life, is just get a van while you still have an apartment. If you can afford it, get a cheap van. I think you don't need to have just one van too. Like get one, buy an old like Ford van or Chevy something, fix it up a little bit. Chances are you can sell it for probably more than you paid for it. But don't think that van has to be your long-term van. Get something that you can get going on, get out there, figure out what you like, what you don't like. I think a lot of people have like this crazy long vision of like the perfect van, and that van costs this much money, so I have to have all this, and so they don't do it because of that. I would say, yeah, buy a cheap van, start there, do weekend trips while you learn to code or something in the evenings while you're still living in an apartment. Chances are the dream will have changed 100 times by the time you get there, and that's the beauty of it. Like that's your path. But don't let step 100 prevent you from taking step 1. I think that's probably my most meaningful piece of advice. My personal philosophy on life. It's changed a lot recently. This journey's become a lot more of a struggle with the word spiritual, but we'll go with spiritual journey. I've been a scientist and engineer my whole life, and so I've been doing a lot more meditation recently. That's definitely opened doors to things that I never thought that I would be experiencing. So my philosophy on life is changing. I don't know that I have an actual solid answer for that right now, but yeah, I think some combination of saying you got to say no to just about everything so that you can say yes to the very few things that actually make you happy. Having the clarity of mind to see what are the things that really make you happy. You risk pissing off a lot of people who want your time and want your energy, and being able to say no to them and it doesn't necessarily have to be people. It can be things. For the most part, it is things that you just have in your life. Learning to say no, I think, is probably my new life philosophy.
And where can people find you if they want to follow your journey?
We are A Degree of Freedom on Instagram, and this is Sitka Runs Wild. If you're looking for dog photos, post some photos there too. But A Degree of Freedom is our main account. We do lots on there.